I design rides, I design large-scale art installations, and I'm going to talk to you about how I sort of accidentally, inadvertently made the largest biofeedback, alleged largest biofeedback machine in the world. So I come from a theater background. I have a theater company in New York City called the National Theater of the United States of America. We worked with developers and took over raw spaces and transformed them into large-scale immersive spectacle shows that were custom-built for every venue that we were in. This one is called Placebo Sunrise, and it was built on 42nd Street with the Durst organization. And we took out, it was a Masonic building originally, then cut it in half, and one side was a taco stand and the other side was a leather store. And when the leather store left, we got this huge space and we created this big casino floor show inside of it. We also, on 42nd Street, created scale models of old vaudeville theaters, one of which was called Garvey and Superpants Episode 23, and we charged nickel and dimes for ticket prices. And true story, slight aside, this is how I met my partner Zoe, who we've been together 10 years now. Because we were charging nickels and dimes for the ticket prices, we had to subsidize our box office sales somehow, so we sold t-shirts and magnets, and we also had a date raffle where you can pay $5 for a date and you write down your favorite cast member. And so she bought a raffle ticket with my name on it for $5, and then at the end we shook up the box fair and square. My friend Ryan chose the ticket, and now we have a 5-year-old daughter. Amazing. In Brooklyn we worked this is a large warehouse that we worked in Brooklyn. And created a big ride. And it was called What's That on My Head? It was a game show ride through 400 years of American history. So you can see here, this is the audience carriage as we were building it. And it was a 4,000 square foot space, so we would drive the audience carriage down the space and it would dock into different stages on either side. And then different stages would come in front of it. And we took you on an alternate vision of American history through the lens of Howard Zinn and other types of excuse me, other types of stories that you wouldn't learn in history books in school. This was the old saloon scene. You can see the people in the audience carriage. This was a piece I did for the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council called 1 Million Forgotten Moments, and we took a storefront window and designed this jewel box theater inside of it where the audience sat inside the window and got little opera glasses, and when the curtains parted, you saw the performance happening out on the street. We had 150 different people performing out on the street in the glass. So that's sort of my background. I come from this kind of kooky downtown New York City theater, immersive theater, site-specific, spectacle-y place. So in 2009, I went to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and I started doing some research there in new types of experiences based on flying and ways for humans to creatively defy gravity. So I started creating some different video games. This is one I created that you navigate. So you navigated this in a flying harness. And it's made with Arduino, which is a little microcontroller, and we set it up in front of a screen. And basically, I just wanted to give a human being the experience of flying through space. So this was one of the pieces that we made. Really what's interesting about this for me was that not so much the environment that you're flying through, which is just sort of it's a game engine demo, so it's not very, we didn't make that whole environment, but the control system is what was interesting. So we used Arduino and some accelerometers and compasses and put them all together in a little C package and sent it over UDP into the program. And it was fun, but that harness is really uncomfortable. And trying to keep yourself up and look at a screen is really uncomfortable. It looks great in this kind of format. It looks really fun. So I tried to, instead of having it on a screen, we put it into a head-mounted display so you could rotate around and you can navigate through a 3D head display. And we showed this particular thing at a game festival at MPAC. MPAC is the Experimental Media Performing Arts Center, which is in Troy, New York. And it's like this mothership of a theater performing arts space landed in the middle of Albany. It's extremely advanced space. technologically, and it's the second quietest building in the world. The first one is made by the same architect, and it's in Germany. And the reason why this one is the second quietest is because of the bedrock and the way that the vibrations from the earth come. So anyway, it's a really interesting space. So the artistic director of this space said, let me ask you a question. Can you apply what you did, control-wise into this gaming scenario? Can you apply this to an automated rigging system that we have here? So my answer to everything is always yes. So I said, yeah, of course we can. So for those of you who don't know what a rigging system is, when you go to see a show and scenery is flying around and somebody comes flying through, Peter Pan comes flying down, or Mary Poppins, that's a rigging system. And there's a series of pulleys and counterweights and ropes. And traditionally it was run by the old sailors, the merchant marines in the old theaters. And so that's why it's considered bad luck to whistle on stage, because that's how they would cue themselves backstage. So if you were on stage and you whistled, you might cue a ghost of one of the old sailors to lower something down on your head. Don't whistle on stage. So these fly systems and rigging systems are now increasingly automated. And so at MPAC, they have this system, and it's they have many winches, but we're specifically here using a 4-winch system. And I started trying to get user control to the system. So typically, somebody would be running this. There would be an operator who would be pressing cues, hitting go, and that would be flying you around. I wanted to fly myself. So we wrote some little apps for the iPhone Touch OSC that you would attach to your hand, and you could type in your coordinate, and you could flip around and fly around. But I kept saying to myself, I just want to get rid of the controller. I don't want to have a joystick. I don't want to control it. I just want to think it and fly. I want to have that ownership over the flying. So that led us to start researching different types of control mechanisms, and one of the ones that we did for just thinking something would be a brain control interface. So there are a lot of sort of consumer brain control interfaces on the market. So we started researching them. Okay, so very quickly, brief 1-second neuroscience. These brain control interfaces are measuring the electrical currents inside of your head. Right now, all of you, your synapses are firing, and as they're firing, they're creating frequencies, and those frequencies are categorized into brain waves. And so what these headsets do is they pick up on those brain waves, they filter out all the other weird noise that's happening inside that's coming from other electrical stimulation, like your jaw and your other muscles and your blinking, and it's reading your EEG data. So there's 4 categories. There's more than 4 categories, but 4 main categories that the headsets that we were working with were beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Each one of these is responsible for a different type of mental state. And the interesting thing about this is you can control these mental states. So you can relax and increase your alpha waves, decrease your theta waves, increase your delta waves. You can control these brain waves. Some toys have been built around these. This is the Star Wars Force Trainer.
Now you can use the awesome power of the Force to move an object with the power of your mind.
So they're really cool to look at like that, and then you play it kind of once, and maybe it works, it kind of doesn't work. You don't know if it's working or not, but it's doing something. And then you've played it, and then that's sort of it. And it's not really that, for me anyway, it wasn't that interesting beyond that. So we got one of these headsets, and we wrote a little code, and we hooked it up to the rigging system, and we got an undergrad student that we were working with. And we put it on her, and we strapped her into the harness, and we were like, all right, now close your eyes and concentrate. Watch for the socks. So this was really an amazing moment for me. This, to me, it was like Leonardo da Vinci meets Raymond Kurzweil meets George Lucas. It was like a complete mind explosion for me. And I sort of changed tracks with the research that I was doing at RPI and said, okay, I'm not going to focus on the 3D rigging. I want to focus on this, and I want to create an experience based on this.
So that level's actually
and so we created the Ascent. The Ascent is a mind-controlled levitation experience. You need to relax yourself in order to levitate yourself in a room. The highest we've done is 40 feet, which is really high. Everything in the room is dynamically responding to your brainwaves. So the color of the room here, which is blue, is an indicator that this woman here is in the zone. The color codes that we did were sort of indigo is in the hot zone, you're really in the zone. Blue is you're in the good zone. Green is you're in the middle zone, and red is you're out of the zone. I'll show you more pictures. Once we hit go with all the software and programming that we did, everything is responding to the EEG. So the rate of the ascent, how much smoke there is in the room, the pulsing of the subwoofers. It's an extremely loud experience. And it's also a game. So the point is to get to the top, like at the carnival with the high striker where you hit the mallet and make the bell go ding. So you have to release all of your desire in order to achieve, levitate yourself to the top of the experience, and when you do, you get enveloped in light and you unleash the Renaissance explosion. It's actually very funny. You unleash the Renaissance explosion and the sun comes out and the confetti cannons go off and Mussorgsky, the Gates of Kiev from Mussorgsky plays, and you're in heaven. So this is a picture of Deborah taking a picture of her son Sam on the ride. Yeah. So it's also built for an audience to watch. So there's two things going on at once. An audience is standing on an observation deck, and under the observation deck is about 10, 15 subwoofers. So as you're watching it, and it's a very big space, and so you're watching this person levitating. It's a slow experience, and you're really rooting for them to do it and to make it. Meanwhile, your teeth are chattering in your head. And all of the sound is being dynamically driven by the EEG. So the faster the subs are pulsing, the better the person is doing. And so how we interpret the EEG and how do we know this is real was a big question that came up. Because some people watching it would say, well, how do I know you're not just behind just pushing the button? So we solved that in a few ways. One of them was, number one, the whole room is color-coded in a way. And so if you see that the person that's going up, if the whole room is blue, the subwoofers are pulsing fast and the person is moving up quickly, and then it goes red and the person stops and the subwoofer stops pulsing, we're setting up this sort of dynamic elements in the room that you can feel when it's happening. We also had some apps on an iPad that we would carry around in a program called Touch OSC that would monitor, I have it here, I could show it to you later, that would monitor the brain waves. But we also found that if you ever presented someone with a screen of how someone was doing, people go like this and just only watch the screen because that's sort of more interesting. And me personally, I don't like to spell things out so explicitly. So I wanted to create a dynamic set of elements in the room that would make it clear that it was happening and it was working. Also, you can see up here, there's a feedback bar. So when you're standing in, well, this guy's floating in here, but when you're in here, you can see these LED lights, and as you focus, the LED lights will come closer together or further apart. So that gives you, as a participant, a rider, a visual point of focus. Here's just some more shots. This is when we did it up in Troy at MPAC. This space is in Sunset Park in Brooklyn, in this great old warehouse they used to build train cars. So the experience starts downstairs in a decompression zone. You sign a very lengthy release saying that if you die, you're not going to, you won't die. It's kind of an intimidating release, but we had to do it. Once you do all the formalities, you get taken into a chamber where you get a headset put on you, and you can look on a video monitor and you can practice a little bit so you can see what it's like to affect the system. And as you start playing around with the EEGs, it's like a muscle that you didn't know you had. And so it's something that you can start to, I'm much better at it now than when I started a year and a half ago. You get fit with your harness. This is my daughter over here, and that's her friend Pearl. They were too young to actually ride it, but we did want to see what it was like with them trying the EEGs. And they can do it. They can get into that zone, which was pretty neat. Then you're led up into the arena. It's this big space. I feel like it's kind of intimidating, but I like that. This is the observation deck of people watching you. You're clipped into your harness. And then the experience begins. This is Perry Chen, the founder of Kickstarter, one of them. This is Ari Kuschir. He's one of the, I said it wrong, right?
It's my partner.
Yeah. He's one of the Kuchner, right? Yeah. Ari Kuchner, one of the founders of Missing Pieces. And this is an epic win. This is all about the epic win. And it's really an ecstatic experience. I got to do it only once in this last round when we did it at Sunset Park, and I was really surprised. It's the type of piece that every moment in making it completely took me by surprise in a really beautiful way. I wasn't anticipating the feeling of what it was like to do it, and it really was, for me, a transportive and transcendent experience. And you really need to go into this internal place of focus, and you need to be with yourself in this way, in this introverted way, in order to create a very intense spectacle in the room. So it's this push and pull of this introversion and this extroversion at the same time. That's Susan Sarandon, who came up to me afterwards like, "You don't understand, you don't understand." It was really beautiful. She was amazing. She was so cool. And that's her winning. When the sun comes out like that, that's a win, an epic win. And so how did we get to the largest biofeedback machine in the world? This is Ariel Kaminer, a writer for the New York Times. And she brought with her neuroscientists because there's a lot of, we get a lot of, this isn't real. And so she brought a neuroscientist with her. And he also has a meditative practice, so we strapped him in, and he just like zipped to the top and kind of loved it. And he's like, all right, that was fun, but I want to see your data. And so we collect EEG data on all of our riders, and so we gave him our packet of data. And he confirmed it's true. The program is responding to EEG data. There's also some other electrical impulses that are being read. Those are probably coming from eye blinks and from jaw muscles. We are locked in right now with, in this particular round of this project to the headset that we're using. We're using a consumer headset, and they have a particular algorithm on their chip, and so we're looking for what they are describing as a meditative state, which is an increase in theta, an increase in alpha, decrease in theta, increase in delta waves. So we started partnering with a new company down in Carlsbad, California, and they are a much more robust scientific community of brain researchers, and they're developing new headsets. And so we are now working on really dialing in what are the different types of brain states we want to do. We want the user to achieve, and then we translate those brain waves into all sorts of different types of mechanics. So for this particular project, we're controlling rigging, light, sound, in many different ways, those elements, controlling them in many different ways. So this guy, neuroscientist, said, this is probably the largest EEG, largest biofeedback machine in the world. And that's what they printed in the New York Times, so it's got to be true, right? So that was on one of our test days. Just another shot. Yes. Okay, that's a great question. Ask questions because people have more questions than I don't. Yes. Some people have not gotten far off the ground. And some people have said to me, I didn't get very far off the ground, but I really learned something about myself. Thank you. Other people have said, I can't believe you are such an... I am mortified. I did that in front of my friends, and I didn't get off the ground. Some people who didn't get off the ground, because this period that we just did in Sunset Park was really ride tests. We did about 300 riders, and it was really for us to understand what it was like, tweak the experience. It was a big test for us. So I would go up and talk to the people. If they didn't get off the ground at all, I would go up and say, do you want to try it again? Number one, some people were like, no, get me out of this thing. Other people were like, yes, I really want to try it again. And so I would say, well, what was your technique? And they'd say, I was counting backwards. I was doing the alphabet backwards. I said, okay, well, let's try something else. You know, what the state that it's looking for is this inner calm mixed with this alert presence. There's these two things happening at once. And usually after speaking to people about it, they would get much higher up off the ground. It's built like a game. There's 3 levels. So you have 2 minutes to break through the first level, 2 minutes, then your time rolls over. If you do the first level in 30 seconds, you'll have 1:30. And you'll need that time to accumulate because it gets harder and harder and louder and more intense the higher you get in the experience. Our lawyer came. And he got to the very top, and these are the afterburners. And once the afterburners start going on, and it really looks like when you're looking down the tarmac, and like I guess I'm thinking of some shot of the Challenger or something landing, or the space shuttle landing, and you see the heat waves coming up off of the tarmac. So these afterburners go on. It really gives that sense of like this intense heat is building up. And you could see he was blue-green the whole time going up, and he was doing well, and he got to that point and went red, and he just stopped. And his wife had just gone before, and she had got to the top and rang the bell and made the sun come out and got a confetti burst. And he got to the top and just stopped, and then the ride timed out, and he came down, and he couldn't make it. And he came up to me afterwards, and he said, I was doing really great. I was in the zone. I was just going with it. But then I got to the top and I got really competitive with myself, and that's when it just stopped. So it left a really bitter taste in my mouth, but the bitter taste isn't your piece, it's me. And I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. It depends on when you start counting. This is some future projections of what we're starting to do with the technology. So this is also EEG driven, but this is 3D rigging cues. So instead of just going on a single plane, we're moving in 3D space now. And so we're working on some new experiences. This is like neuroscience is so new to me. I come from this, immersive theater background, and so starting to play with this. And the whole time building this, I'm just thinking, just make it more epic. Just make it more epic. That was my mantra, more epic. I want to feel it more. I just kept wanting more out of the experience as a viewer and as a rider doing it. So we're now expanding the technology and moving it into a few different types of experiences and a few different markets and sectors as well.
Sorry, did you keep track of the demographics of those that it worked really well and those maybe that didn't work? Was it age or background?
Age and sex didn't matter. And also, we have a very small data set. We have like 350 people. I don't know if that's a large enough data set. But we found that performers or anyone who's comfortable speaking in public, or, we know a lot of performers and stuff. So the performers that came did very well because there's a certain focusing mind state, I guess. I don't know what it is. This is my assumption that you get into in order to be a performer in that way. All the producers that came are people who are thinking of potentially mounting it somewhere. We're coming in and like looking around like, that's going to be expensive. And they'd get clipped in, and they didn't do very well. And to me, from our discussions about it, I don't know exactly why, but from our discussions about it, they said it's because they were thinking of all the elements, and technical people too who really want to understand what everything is and what are they hooked up to and where's the winch and where are the lights. So, you have to let go of all of that stuff and really go into this zone in order to make it work. This is the indoor parachute thing on the Universal City Walk in LA that I just did. Have anyone done this? It's so much fun. So I want to create some sort of experience, some sort of flying experience based on these giant indoor fans. I think that would be really fun.
Do you think there are other applications to this whole experience besides just an experience? Have you even thought of looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, what took us really by surprise was how affected people were by the experience. And people seem to really have some sort of a transformative experience doing it. And that's something, you know, we wanted to make something wonderful and cool and beautiful. But the way that you need to engage with it is what sort of crossed it over into this other realm. And so we're figuring out what to do with that exactly, because we felt like it was very powerful. Yeah.
Well, for amputees, for example, I mean, you've been contacted by people who are in neurosurgery or neurologically inclined, you know, surgical experts, because, you know, you're dealing with the EEG, the energy of the brain, and essentially you could drive all kinds of robotics this way. You don't have to use it.
Yeah, there's a lot of initiatives already. There's the robotic wheelchair. There's the new robotic hand that the woman who's, you know, full quadriplegic just was able to manipulate a hand to have her drink coffee. So people with locked-in syndrome, there's a lot of research, and it's sort of a budding phenomenon now, the EEG, exploring the EEG sensors and how to translate that into physical mechanics. And so that's one of the directions that we're taking it in as well. I think at minimum what we did is we're starting to work on making this particular ride ADA compliant so that someone in a wheelchair can, you know, we want it to be accessible to anyone. So, yes. So if there's no more questions, I think...
Do you have an idea of what you're going to do
Thank you.
with the...
Oh, with this?
Yeah, with this. This looks awesome.
A little bit, yeah. It's really fun. And when you open your mouth, it makes your cheeks go like that, which is what I'm doing there. There. Yeah, I have some ideas, yeah. I'm working on it. Yeah, it's neat.
Amazing.